Right now you have 60 seconds. Not to do something important, not to make a decision. Just 60 seconds. Count them if you want. 1, 2, 3. Now imagine those 60 seconds are the only thing standing between you and the rest of your life. Imagine you can see the finish line, you can almost touch it, and then, gone. This is not a hypothetical. This happened to one real man on one real morning at exactly 10:59 a.m., November 11th, 1918. And nobody talks about it. To understand what happened that morning, you need to feel what 4 years of war actually does to a human being. Not read about it, feel it. World War I began in 1914. Everyone thought it would be over by Christmas. It was not over by Christmas. It was not over the Christmas after that, or the one after that, or the one after that. For 4 years, 10 million soldiers died in trenches dug into the mud of Europe. Not in heroic charges, not in glorious battles, in mud, in rain, in poison gas that burned your lungs from the inside out. You woke up every morning not knowing if this was the day. You ate. You waited. You tried not to think. And then the whistle blew, and you climbed out of the trench and ran toward the machine guns. By 1918, the men who survived had been doing this for 4 years. They were not soldiers anymore. They were something else entirely. Hollow, exhausted, barely human. Just trying to stay alive one more day, one more hour, one more minute. And then the news came. November 7th, 1918. Germany sends a message to the Allies. We want to talk. 4 days of negotiations follow. Back and forth, terms and conditions, legal language, signatures. And finally, at 5 a.m. on November 11th, 1918, the papers are signed. The war will end at 11 a.m., 6 hours from now. The news spreads through the Allied lines like wildfire. Soldiers who had not smiled in months are laughing, crying, hugging strangers. It's over. It's finally over. By 9 a.m., everyone on the Western Front knows the exact time. 11 a.m. 600 minutes. Then, home. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Between 5 a.m., when the papers were signed, and 11 a.m., when the ceasefire began, 11,000 soldiers were killed or wounded. 11,000. In the last 6 hours of a war that everyone knew was already over. Generals on both sides kept ordering attacks, kept sending men forward, kept fighting a war that had already ended on paper. Nobody knows exactly why. Maybe they wanted one last victory. Maybe they wanted to use up their ammunition. Maybe they simply couldn't stop. But among those 11,000 men, there was one whose story is different from all the others. Henry Gunther was 23 years old. He was not supposed to be a hero. He was a quiet young man from Baltimore, son of German immigrants. He worked as a bank clerk before the war. He liked baseball. He wrote letters home to his girlfriend. He was, by every account, an ordinary person living an ordinary life. Then the war came, and Henry Gunther went. By 1918, he had been in France for a year. He had seen things no 23-year-old should see. And somewhere in those trenches, the quiet bank clerk from Baltimore had changed. He had once written a letter to a friend telling him not to enlist. The letter was intercepted by military censors. He was demoted, humiliated. Something in Henry Gunther hardened after that. He became reckless, aggressive, like a man with something to prove. And on the morning of November 11th, 1918, Henry Gunther had one last chance to prove it. The morning of November 11th. Henry Gunther's unit is positioned near a small village called Chaumont-devant-Donvillers in northeastern France. It is 10:44 a.m., 16 minutes until the ceasefire. Everyone is waiting, counting down the minutes, talking about home, about food, about sleeping in a real bed. Across the field, a small group of German soldiers are watching them. The Germans also know about the armistice. They also know it ends at 11 a.m. They are waiting too. And then, at 10:59 a.m., Henry Gunther does something nobody expects. He fixes his bayonet, he stands up, and he charges, alone, straight toward the German position. His commanding officer screams at him to stop. His fellow soldiers scream at him to stop. The German soldiers, who know the war is ending in 60 seconds, wave their hands at him. Stop! It's over! Go back! Henry Gunther does not stop. He is running now, full sprint, bayonet forward, screaming. The German soldiers fire a short burst to warn him. He does not stop. They fire again. At 10:59 a.m. and 59 seconds, 1 minute before the war ended, Henry Gunther fell. The guns went silent at 11 a.m., exactly as scheduled. And then something happened that veterans would describe for the rest of their lives. Absolute silence. After 4 years of constant artillery, machine guns, explosions, silence. So sudden and so complete that men said they could hear their own heartbeat for the first time since 1914. Some soldiers stood in the open field and simply could not move. Some laughed. Some wept. Some did both at the same time. And somewhere in that field, Henry Gunther lay still, the last American soldier to die in World War I, killed 60 seconds before the silence came. The official military report recorded his death at 11 a.m. because whoever wrote it could not bring themselves to write 10:59. Nobody knows exactly why Henry Gunther charged. Some say he wanted to erase the shame of his demotion. Some say he had simply lost the ability to stop fighting. That 4 years in those trenches had rewired something inside him. Some say he just wanted it to end, not the war, something inside himself. His commanding officer wrote afterward, "He was a good soldier who wanted to die a good soldier." Whether that is a compliment or the saddest sentence ever written, I will let you decide. Henry Gunther is buried in a military cemetery in France. His demotion was reversed after his death. He was promoted back to sergeant. He received the Distinguished Service Cross. His girlfriend waited for him. She never married. 60 seconds. That is all that separated Henry Gunther from the rest of his life. The baseball games, the letters, the girl who waited, the ordinary Tuesday mornings he would never have again. 60 seconds. We spend 60 seconds every day doing things we can't even remember. Scrolling, waiting for coffee, staring at nothing. Henry Gunther spent his running towards something he couldn't stop. And the war that had already ended on paper, took him anyway. History does not always make sense. It does not always give you the ending you deserve. Sometimes it gives you 11 a.m., and sometimes it gives you 10:59. This was History Autopsy. If this story stayed with you, subscribe, because next week we find another moment history buried, and we bring it back. History is always watching.